Hey, what's going on, guys? Realm Gaming here. Before we get started, I just wanted to mention some of my socials in the description of the video. If you want to support the channel, please check those out. If you want to support the channel in other ways, please consider just dropping a like or a nice comment somewhere on the video. It really helps the algorithm push our content out there to a broader audience. With that being said, hope you guys enjoy the episode. Hey, what's going on, guys? Realm Gaming here. Back to the video. Today's episode, we're going to be reviewing the Mistweaver Monk in the War Within beta and whether or not you should play it going into War Within. This guide is going to focus specifically on Mythic Plus, so this is not going to cover anything with raiding or PvP. And we're also just going to be covering Fistweaver specifically, so we're not going to be doing anything with or discussing anything with Castweaver in this video. So we're going to start with the changes. We'll talk about defensives, utility, our general healing spells, cooldown, mana management, our tier set, and then finally at the end, dungeon performance. So let's first talk about some of the monk class changes, and these are just going to be the changes that have affected monk specifically, so not necessarily just Mistweaver, but all the specializations of monk. So there is a ton of changes, but we're just going to talk about some of the more notable changes. The first talent we're going to talk about is lighter than air. So roll causes you to become lighter than air, allowing you to double jump and dash forward a short distance once within 5 seconds, but the cooldown of roll is increased by 2 seconds. So basically now every single time that we are rolling, we will get a nice little dash in there, and it really does help with your mobility. It was a little awkward, kind of finicky to get used to, especially in like a crazy Mythic Plus setting where there's a lot of things going on, but you do get used to it pretty quickly, and this is a good change because it just gives us increased mobility. We did also see some changes to our Transcendence spell. So Transcendence now tethers your spirit onto an ally for 1 hour, and you can use Transcendence Transfer to teleport to your ally's location. So instead of just being able to teleport to your spirit, you're also able to teleport to an ally, which is just going to add to our mobility even more. We also got a new talent called Pressure Points, and this will be directly linked to our Paralysis spell. And this will basically allow us to remove all enrage effects from a specific target. Also, our improved roll is now baseline, which is really nice, which means by default, our roll will have 2 charges, and you can actually increase this to a 3rd charge through our Celerity talent. So this is a passive that will reduce the cooldown of roll by 5 seconds and increase its maximum number of charges by 1. So of course, that's going to be really strong when paired with the lighter of air talent, because this is going to allow us to not only roll 3 times, but also dash 3 times as well. And there were a ton of other major changes to the monk class tree. That's all I'm going to cover for now, because there are so many changes that, to be honest, you'd have to make one complete video just on the monk class tree changes, especially if you're just wanting to cover everything. So for now, let's just go ahead and move into Mistweaver Monk specifically. Then we have a new talent called Crane Style, and essentially what it does is this is going to be buffing our Rising Sun kick, Spinning Crane kick, and Blackout kick to have a chance to kick up a Gust of Mist, our mastery. So if you're not familiar with what Gust of Mist is, we have a whole bunch of spells that can proc it, and just to read it out here, this is going to cause a Gust of Healing Mist to instantly heal a primary target for X amount. So going back to Crane Style here, Rising Sun kick now has a chance to heal 2 allies instead of 1, and then we're also adding Spinning Crane kick and Blackout kick to the bunch as well, so we just have more opportunities to proc our mastery. I think this is a way for Blizzard to lean a little bit more into the fist weaving playstyle, and overall I think that this is a really good addition to the tree. Then we also have the new Zen Pulse. So Renewing Mist heal over time effects have a chance to cause your next Vivify to also trigger a Zen Pulse on its target and all allies with Renewing Mist, healing them for X amount, increased by 6% per Renewing Mist active up to 30 max. So this is a way for Blizzard to kind of incentivize us to spread out more Renewing Mists. Then we also have Chi Harmony, which is directly below Zen Pulse, and this was one of our tier sets from Dragonflight, and they basically put it into a talent here. So Renewing Mist increases target's healing received from you by 50% for the first 8 seconds of its duration, but cannot jump to a new target during this time. So this is just another way that Blizzard is trying to incentivize us to spread out Renewing Mist. So Zen Pulse and Chi Harmony will pair very nicely together. We also have a talent here called Deep Clarity. After you fully consume Thunder Focus Tea, your next Vivify will trigger that Zen Pulse that we just discussed. Then down here in the bottom left, Jade Fire will no longer be casting our Essence font. So our Essence font was a way that we could proc our Ancient Teachings buff, and with the removal of it, now we have no other way to proc our Ancient Teachings, unfortunately. However, Jadefire Stomp has been reduced to a 15-second cooldown, which will pair nicely with our Ancient Teachings, which will last for 15 seconds. This means you should always be able to have an Ancient Teachings buff up, but one of the issues that I have seen in the beta is if your tank is positioning the mobs around a lot, sometimes you don't get that Jadefire Stomp reset. And of course, that reset is coming from Awakened Jadefire. So if you don't get a reset and the tank moves the mobs, we don't really have a good way to proc our Ancient Teachings. So a little bit unfortunate. However, we did get the CDR on Jadefire Stomp, which pairs very nicely with Ancient Teachings, so I can't complain too much there. Did also get some changes to Jade Bond as well, which will increase the healing of Yu'lon's Soothing Breath by 500%. So seeing a massive increase there. Did also see some changes to Pool of Mist. So Renewing Mist now has 3 charges, which is very nice. And this will reduce the remaining cooldown of our Rising Sun Kick by 1/7, which is absolutely insane. And then you also get Rising Sun Kick now reduces remaining cooldown of Renewing Mist by 1 second. So we do have a lot of synergy there. So you want to be casting Renewing Mist and Rising Sun Kicks a whole bunch because you're going to be getting a ton of CDR through Pool of Mist. We also have Refreshing Jade Wind. Thunder Focus Tea will summon a tornado around you, causing X amount of healing every 0.67 seconds for 6 seconds on up to 5 allies within 10 yards. So this is really cool because this has been kind of worked into our Thunder Focus Tea. So just further incentivizing us to be using our Thunder Focus Tea. I think this is a great addition. We also have Revival, got buffed massively in Mythic Plus content. It didn't get buffed quite as much in raid content. You can see healing is reduced beyond 5 targets. But this kind of goes in line with some of the Divine Hymn changes that we're seeing with Priest, and then also some of the changes that we saw with Tranquility with Restoration Druid. So they're trying to add some punch to our group healing cooldowns, while also not making them outright broken in a raid environment. We did also see the removal of Clouded Focus, however, to kind of compensate for some of the power that it lost, we did get a throughput increase to both Vivify and Invigorating Mist. And then not only that, our Mastery Gust of Mist has been buffed by 20%. Okay, so there are some other changes, but for now, that's all I'm going to cover in this specific video. All right, up next, let's go over defenses. So one of your main defenses will be Fortifying Brew, which will be a personal. This is on a 2-minute cooldown, but I believe you can reduce it down to 1.5 minutes through an additional talent. But this is going to increase our maximum health by 20% and reduce all damage we take by 20%. Then Life Cocoon, which is on a 1.3-minute cooldown with an additional talent, which will reduce it even further. And this is a very broken spell because it's on such a low cooldown, you can pretty much have it up on every single pool. This is going to put a big Absorb Shield on a specific target, and then through talents, it will also apply Renewing Mist and Enveloping Mist to the target. Then we also do have Diffuse Magic, which is on a 1.5-minute cooldown. This will reduce the magic damage that we take by 60% for 6 seconds, and it will also transfer that damage back to the caster if possible. We do also have Yu'lon's Grace, which is a passive ability, and we will get a lot of damage reduction through this talent if we do take it. So find resilience in the flow of chi in battle, gaining a magic absorb shield for 1% of your max health every 3 seconds, stacking up to 10%. So this is essentially increasing our effective health by 10% while the shield is up. Then in terms of defenses, that's pretty much all we have. We do have a bunch of various other talents that will reduce the damage that we take. However, for the most part, we're kind of in a very similar boat to something like a Restoration Shaman. Historically, we've not had the best defensives. All right, now let's talk about utility. So utility on Mistweaver Monk is going to focus more on mob control more than anything. We do not have a Lust. We do not have a Battle Res. We do not have any sort of party buff, although we do have Mystic Touch. The only problem with Mystic Touch is that it is very comp specific. So if you're not running with a physical damage group, you're not going to see a whole bunch of value out of this passive. Now, outside of that, in terms of mob control, we do have a lot going on. We do have a couple of AoE stops. So we do have Leg Sweep here on a 50-second cooldown. Basically, you'll just do an AoE sweep and you'll stun all targets hit. Very, very powerful in a Mythic Plus setting. That's one of our 2 AoE stops. Our other stop is going to be Ring of Peace. Now, this is a spell that you will have to be careful with because a lot of times you can mess up the damage pattern of your group by splitting all the mobs out. But if you can kind of find the mobs and get them close to a wall, you can actually cancel the knockback effect with the wall and instead just get the interrupt that comes through Ring of Peace. Then in terms of interrupts, we do have our Spear Hand Strike on a 15-second cooldown. It's a pretty strong ability on a low cooldown, something that you will be using quite a bit. You can also pair this with Paralysis, which is on a 30-second cooldown. This can be yet another interrupt. So you can see that Mistweaver Monk does have a lot of interrupts, a lot of mob control. So a lot of our damage reduction will be coming from our interrupts and our stops, not necessarily directly through defensives. Then, of course, we do have our Detox spell, and when you take the improved Detox talent, this will remove all magic, poison, and disease effects from the target. Okay, now let's talk about just some of our general healing spells. So since this is a Mistweaver specific guide, we're just going to talk about how to heal through the Mistweaver playstyle. So we do have the Renewing Mist talent. So the way this works is you'll be able to put Renewing Mist out on several different targets, and this will work as a heal over time effect. And we have a ton of talents that synergize with Renewing Mist. So you can see here on my screen right now, I just typed in the word Renewing Mist and you can see all the different talents that synergize with Renewing Mist. And we've already talked about this already, but just to double down on it, through our Zen Pulse as well as through our Chi Harmony talent, this is going to give you basically just increased healing on all the targets that have a Renewing Mist on them. So with Mistweaver Monk, the main way that you're going to be healing is through your damage profile. So we're going to talk about damage and healing all in one specific section because you can't have one without the other basically. So if you're looking to play Mistweaver, we do have a talent called a Jadefire Stomp, and you'll basically throw it on the ground and this will proc something called Ancient Teachings. Now this is a buff that you will need to track, and basically what it'll do is it's going to allow you to heal through your damage. Now, one thing to note about Ancient Teachings is it only allows you to heal through some damage. If you look at the tooltip on the screen, you will not see our Spinning Crane Kick ability, and that's because Spinning Crane Kick healing actually comes through Awakened Jadefire. So basically, healing with Mistweaver Monk comes down to 2 things. Keeping your Ancient Teachings buff up at all times, which procs whenever our Jadefire Stomp goes out, and then staying within that Jadefire Stomp so that you can heal through Awakened Jadefire. Then not only are you healing through Awakened Jadefire also has a chance to reset your Jadefire Stomp. So I highly recommend to get some sort of weak aura that will tell you whether or not you're within or not in your Jadefire Stomp. Now, another core healing spell and damage spell that we have is Spinning Crane Kick. This is probably where a bulk of your healing and damage is going to be coming from in a Mythic Plus setting. And this is a channeled ability, and it has a small cast time, and you will spin in a circle, do a whole bunch of damage and a whole bunch of healing if you are within your Jadefire Stomp. Now, in terms of some of our core abilities, we do have Tiger Palm, which is more of a single target strike. We also have our Blackout Kick, which can be used in both single target and AoE scenarios due to specific talents, which will turn this into an AoE ability. And then, of course, we do have our Rising Sun Kick, which will also apply a Renewing Mist to an ally within 40 yards. In terms of other damaging abilities, we also have our Touch of Death on a 3-minute cooldown. Basically, if you run into a target that has less health of you, you can cast this, and this will instantly kill them. Then some other general healing spells. We do have our Soothing Mist here. This is a channeled ability, and this will allow our Enveloping Mist and Vivify to be instant cast. So basically, while you are channeling Soothing Mist, you can cast a Vivify or an Enveloping Mist. Now, Soothing Mist by itself does not do a ton of single target healing, but again, when paired with Enveloping Mist and Vivify, it is a very potent single target heal, but it can be very mana expensive to go through this combo. So that does take us to Enveloping Mist. Basically, this is going to be a very powerful heal over time effect, and this is also going to increase all healing received from us by 30%. And this will also apply Renewing Mist. Then finally, this takes us to Vivify. If you're familiar with Holy Priest or Restoration Shaman, this is basically going to be our quick heal. Now, through a talent called Invigorating Mist, Vivify will actually be turned into an AoE heal. So if you can have Renewing Mist out on all allies and channel a Soothing Mist into an Enveloping Mist into a Vivify, you can get a ton of AoE healing out on your party. Okay, now let's quickly go into cooldowns. First one I want to talk about is Invoke Chi-Ji, the Red Crane. So this is going to be a very powerful cooldown. It's on a 1 minute cooldown, so you can have this up on every trash pack if you want. Basically what's going to happen is you're going to summon this crane that comes out. It's going to do a gust of mist every time we blackout kick, rising sun kick, or spinning crane kick. And this is going to heal 2 allies, and this is also going to reduce the cast time of our next enveloping mist by 33%, stacking until it becomes instant cast. So this is one of those buttons that you'll press and just do kind of your normal damage rotation, and health bars will just passively go up. So I really like this cooldown because it's just, you just press it, do your normal damage rotation, and you don't have to worry about too much because there's so much passive healing built into it. Now we also have the Revival spell. This is on a 3 minute cooldown, and it does a decent amount of healing, probably medium healing. However, the main part of this is it will remove all magic, poison, and disease effects. So this can be a very clutch dispel when you need it. Then up next we have our Thunder Focus T. This is on a 30-second cooldown, and when we press it, basically it's going to be buffing our next spell. So you see we got Enveloping Mist, Renewing Mist, Vivify, Rising Sun Kick, or Expel Harm. It can be really clutch to pair this with Expel Harm because of the Absorb Shield that you do get out of it. And this can also be very clutch to use with something like Enveloping Mist because it's an immediate cast. Now, one thing to note is every time you press Thunder Focus T, that refreshing Jade Wind talent is going to be proccing if you do take it. So you will actually get some damage out of just pressing the button. And then we also have Expel Harm, which is very sleeper strong. It's on a 15-second cooldown. And the way I like to think of this spell is as a personal health pot. So we have a talent here called Strength of Spirit. Expel Harm's healing is increased by up to 30% based on your own missing health. Okay, let's talk about hero talents now. So we have Conduit of the Celestials and Master of Harmony. I have no clue which is going to be stronger because we're still in beta. Things could change literally tomorrow, but we can briefly talk about them, just kind of how they work. I'm not going to cover a ton of stuff here in the middle, just for the most part, the main couple of nodes. So under Conduit of Celestials, you have a Celestial Conduit, and this is like a channeled spell on a 1.5 minute cooldown. And this does a lot of damage and it does a lot of healing. So this is a channeled spell and you can actually cast it while moving, which is very nice. And the more targets that you do hit with the spell, the more damage that it will do. Then you also have a spell called Unity Within at the very bottom here. And basically you can recast this again. And basically it will do a burst of damage and healing once cast again. Then we also have a Master of Harmony over here on the right hand side. And this is going to work through our Thunder Focus T. So as you do damage and healing, you're storing this vitality essentially, and you can burst that out through your Mana Tea as damage and healing. So this could be really nice, especially with Way of the Thousand Strikes here. I'm not sure why they decided not to add Spinning Crane Kick into the mix, but you know, just kind of depending on tuning, we could be potentially running either one of these. Okay, now let's talk about mana management for a Mistweaver monk. So you will have a spell called Mana Tea, which you will passively basically generate stacks of Mana Tea while you're in combat and healing. And as those charges build up, you can then consume those charges to restore your mana. So this will cap out at 20 charges, and this is something that you specifically want to be staying on top of. And typically, I like to do Mana Tea charges in between pulls. Now, thankfully, Mistweaver Monk shouldn't have too many mana issues because most of your healing comes through your damage, and your damage healing is very mana efficient. Note that there is also a talent called Energizing Brew, which will make Mana Tea channel 50% faster and generate 20% more mana. And then in terms of just general mana management for Mistweaver Monk, as long as you're healing and relying on your damage to heal your allies through Ancient Teachings, for the most part, you don't have any sort of mana issues. Now, if you are casting a whole bunch of Enveloping Mists and Vivifies, then that's kind of where the mana game will kind of creep up on you. But for the most part, you should be relying on your damage to heal. So that's one of the pros of Mistweaver Monk, is it's a very mana efficient spec. Okay, now let's quickly talk about tier set. So our 2 set is Enveloping Mist and Renewing Mist healings increased by 10%. And then our 4 set, Vivify, extends the duration of Renewing Mist and Enveloping Mist on its primary target by 3 seconds up to 3 seconds. So to be honest, not that exciting of a tier set. Doesn't seem super powerful to me. Now that does make sense because we do have the hero talents coming into play. So Blizzard specifically didn't want super strong tier sets, but it's kind of hard to complain too much about it because we did get Chi Harmony baked into our talents. So, that's kind of like a tier set in itself. So it kind of makes sense as to why our tier set bonuses aren't insanely strong. So overall, nothing too crazy, nothing too interesting here, but that's what we're going to be rolling with going into Season 1 of War Within. All right, up next, let's talk a little bit about dungeon performance. So one thing that is a little bit rough with Mistweaver Monk is we don't have any sort of curse dispel. Now, of course, you can bring a druid, shaman, or mage to handle that. But that is kind of a con of playing Mistweaver Monk, is due to Mystic Touch and due to us not bringing any sort of a curse dispel, you do have to kind of play with very specific comps sometimes. I do really wish Blizzard would have given us some sort of lust or battle res or party buff in War Within. Or maybe just tuning Mystic Touch into some sort of way to where it does affect magic damage as well. Now, with some of the cons out of the way, we have insanely good cooldowns. So we have Life Cocoon, we have Red Crane, and we have Celestial Conduit, all on roughly a 1 minute to 1.5 minute cooldown. So you pretty much have your full kit on every single pool, which is really nice. We also have some of the highest burst healing in the game with Soothing Mist, Enveloping Mist, and Vivify spam. And that is pretty mana inefficient, but this could be necessary because we've seen tanks get nerfed pretty hard going into War Within. So more tank healing could be required for us. And then we also have some of the best mob control and mobility in the game, especially with the additions of the new dash feature with our rolls. You're pretty much just zooming all over the place, and it is a very fun playstyle. So from a damage standpoint and from a healing standpoint, Mistweaver Monk is looking to be in a great spot right now. All right, guys, that's going to be it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. I also have my socials down in the description of the video. If you want to check out our Discord or maybe support the channel, please check those out. All right, guys, we'll see you in the next one.